All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic new year and had a great holiday month. I know I did. Pretty much took the month off. I knew the charts and things weren't going to go anywhere anyway, and they really didn't. And now that we've kicked off the new year, things are starting to move. So let's get back into it, should we? All right. So I want to first start with what we're going to see this week. So we have a couple things happening. We got Jerome Powell speaking on Tuesday at 9 a.m. And so that will most likely create volatility as he starts to explain what we might be able to expect with inflation and yada, yada, yada. We know the deal. And so markets like to move around what he says, whether his tone is hawkish still or starts becoming a little more optimistic. And then we have CPI on Thursday. So we're going to get a good idea of if inflation is starting to fall, if we stay sideways, or, God forbid, inflation looks like it's going back up. So this is going to be a very good indication of what we might be able to anticipate moving forward. However, I think tomorrow, there's nothing. So I don't expect too much tomorrow, other than maybe a little bit more continuation from the momentum that we had last week. So I don't think we're going to see a fall within the next, tonight or tomorrow. If we do, it's going to maybe start possibly when J. Powell starts speaking on Tuesday. If not, we might continue rallying. But if inflation does show that we are falling, if inflation is coming down, then I do expect the markets to continue moving upward. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not real keen on trading much until I see what that CPI print is, and then I want to kind of trade the momentum from there. So I might not even trade a whole lot whatsoever this week. If I see some, good discounts on something or some altcoins that might be hitting certain spots, then I might try to do some scalps still. But for the most part, we're just going to continue dollar cost averaging into blue chip things that we like, Bitcoin and ETH. We can just index and buy, the S&P at the lows here every month. I think in the next year, I think this is going to be an accumulation and value year. I think that a lot of the riskier, growth assets have been moving into value stocks. And I think that that's why the Dow is outperforming everything else still. We can see that if we go here. Yeah. So if we look at the Dow Jones compared to the S&P compared to the NASDAQ. All right. So here's our overall downtrend. And you can see all the way back in November of last year, the Dow Jones broke its downtrend. Okay. And yet the S&P and the NASDAQ still have not. Not only have they not broken their downtrend, but they're not even close to breaking their downtrends yet. The S&P is still well below and the NASDAQ is still well below. If we go look at these individual futures, this is ES, so this represents the S&P 500. And I've just taken, the green line is obviously the downtrend. And I've just taken from the recent low, which is our current low way down here, to our high that tried to break the downtrend. And you can see we found this support on the 0.5 now for several weeks. And this is the area that after we failed to break that downtrend up there, or the downtrend up there, I said this is where we're going to be coming. And not only did we go right to it, but we've spent the last 3 weeks right here. And now it's held, and we made a nice move up to start the year. Now, whether or not that continues, that's the question. I kind of think we do. Personally, I think we're going to go and try to tap this trend line again. Whether or not we get through it is going to depend on what that inflation data looks like, and how the markets digest it, right? So that's kind of my outlook for the S&P. I think we do continue to make a move up here. And for the NASDAQ, I think it's going to make this bottom here, at least for the short term, and try to come up here and retest that trend line again that we've been watching. It's the trend line that started 14 years ago. And I still think that this is divergent. However, as talked about previously, we can continue to make another low and remain divergent. And by divergent, I mean that the RSI and the MACD down here are pointing upwards while the price is pointing downwards in the same time frame. So this could, depending on what we get, still come down here and do something like this before reversing. And this divergence is maintained because this still doesn't break the uptrend, right? So this could make a move up and then bounce down, and the divergence remains, right? So just because you find divergence doesn't mean you're just going to just ape all your money into it and expect good results. What this means is when we start seeing these things is you want to start dollar cost averaging into things. You should never just throw all your money at one thing at one time. It's not an investment strategy. You want to buy things over time. And so I do still think that this is a great time for long-term investing into companies that you like for long-term growth. So I'm going to be making a list. Actually, Jungle Book has made a really nice list using Python for us. And we can see that in the channel for stocks and equities. And so I'm going to go through this list now and extensively chart all of these. But these companies that he has indicated for us are all companies that have had significant long-term sustained uptrends. And when I mean long-term, I mean like 20 years. So these are the companies that people are going to be investing and putting their money into while we wait for deflationary markets to start putting our money back into risky assets, right? So over the course of this year, I think that these are the kind of companies that we're going to want to invest in. I think they will be the safer plays. They're not going to be, turn your $10 into $100 overnight plays, but they're going to be beating inflation, in my opinion. And that's what the ultimate goal is, really. We want to beat inflation over long periods of time. So moving on to the dollar. So the dollar had this massive run, right? And last year, we kind of called the top on this based on this downtrend. So I just drew from that top to this bottom and, didn't give it to me. Come on, magnet. And you can see that 1.618 up there became our top. And 1.618 is a very amazing fib. Whenever you draw a downtrend and something moves all the way up to the 1.618, that is where you want to take your profits. Vice versa, if it's a good company and you're drawing an uptrend and it's retraced all the way back down to the 1.618, if that's a company you believe in and that's a company that has a good balance sheet, you're going to want to start buying around that 1.618, just like this. Does it overshoot it? Yeah, several times. But ultimately, that was our top. So if we just go back here and look at now, I've just measured from this bottom to this top, and you can see we have failed the 0.382, which means we don't have a sign of a strong uptrend yet. So right now, this 382 is broken, and I kind of expect to come down and see this 0.5. I have a little trend line here that's just kind of going up through here and hitting a multiple points. And you can see last week, at least for a day, we made a nice bullish move and came up here and tapped it and then made a very bearish move. Our EMAs are not crossed. The dollar is still fully bearish, not only on the daily, but on the weekly as well. And you can see this was our retest of the 8 EMA on the weekly. So I do expect the dollar to continue falling. As the dollar falls, equities tend to rise. So that's why this is another indication and another little helpful tool that I'm using to possibly predict that we're going to continue a little bit higher this week, at least until Thursday when CPI comes out, and then we'll see. So for the beginning of the week, I'm going to kind of remain a little bit bullish and then see what CPI says. If we go look at USDT, I've drawn this downtrend. So I'm comparing USDT now to DXY, right? So I've drawn this downtrend very similar to how I drew this downtrend here for DXY, right? And it looks very similar. There's a lot of similarities between DXY and USDT. Same little downtrend I'm measuring. You can see the 1.618 up here. However, the difference is, of course, we've tested the 1.618 several times. The first time we tested it was all the way back in June. All right, so we can come up here and keep testing these things, yet Bitcoin continues to drop. However, Ethereum didn't, right? Ethereum made its low a little while ago and it has not returned. So that's something to be said. Does Ethereum make another low? I don't know. So I think we're rejecting this 1.618. We've also had this trend that started all the way in November of 2021, so over a year now, that this has held this trend. and it is now breaking. And this is the trend that I said I wanted to see break before I started becoming more personally risk on, right? And so this is still where I think we should be dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and Ethereum. That is where I'm going to draw the line right now. I'm not going to make the mistake that a lot of people made in the past, which is, oh, we want to buy some AVAX here, or we want to buy Sol here. I don't think these projects are going to return back to their all-time highs. Now, I might be wrong. There might be one or two, but given the history of what happens in markets with altcoins, those projects don't go back. They never return. You can go back and look at the history of, the 2018 run and look at the coins that were in the top 50. There are very few that remained. There's always something new that comes out. There's always another set of cryptocurrencies that come out that, they're the next layer ones, or they're the next ETH killer. Nobody's going to beat ETH. It's not going to happen. So don't expect it to. But there will be new ones that come out, like A0. We're already starting to see them. So I fully plan on this year accumulating Bitcoin and ETH, and then digging and doing research to find the next ones, right? There's going to be a whole slew of new things. There's going to be another Luna. There's going to be another really great Ponzi scheme, right? And if we get in on it early enough, we'll do fine. But we got to wait, right now we got to wait and see which ones start coming up to the top, right? So that's what I plan on doing. Plan on doing research this year, trying to find those gems. I think we've already found one, and you guys know which one I'm talking about. So I'm kind of accumulating that one a little bit. And we'll go from there. So as far as Bitcoin goes, we have broken this falling wedge. I'm pretty sure that's broken. So that is the trend line starting from this top here in March and drawing through the top in November. And we are now opening on the weekly and the daily above this line. So this is no DRK, not A0. So we are now over the 8 EMA. We are over trend. I said this needs to break. So right now I'm kind of bullish on Bitcoin. Now I've said this before, and I think I said it right here last time, right? And then you can see what happens afterwards. So the market has a really good way of fooling everyone, including people who really know how to read technical analysis, right? So I don't want to say this is the bottom, because I made that mistake here, and I don't want to do that again. But right now things look pretty good. So without calling the bottom, I think things look pretty good. If this does not hold and we do get another massive leg down, then these are the levels that we are going to see. 13.8 is the next level I have down, and then ultimately 12.6. And then below that, there are gaps at 11.2 and just shy of 10K. In my opinion, if this wedge breaks bearish, I don't know how much hope I have for Bitcoin, to be honest with you. I think that if this fails these levels here, that we could potentially go all the way back to 3K, and that would mean we're in a deep recession, and there might be war and who knows what else. So for the most part, I'm just dollar cost averaging into things. And if things start looking sour again, I have no emotional attachment to anything, and I will be cutting them quickly. If we go to Ethereum, also there is bullish divergence on Bitcoin as well. And that is, again, where we see the RSI and the MACD pointing upward. You can see both of these pointing up, and the price from the same time frame and same points here and here going down. And this is what marked the top when we were at 69K, and this could potentially be marking our bottom now in this zone here. So anywhere in here is where you should be dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin if you believe in Bitcoin long term. And that's just what I think. Ethereum. All right, well, Ethereum has now kind of just been creeping along and making these higher highs now. On the daily, it doesn't look like much, right? We're kind of just sitting in the same old spot. But the fact that it didn't make a lower low with Bitcoin is interesting, right? Like, it didn't go and make a lower low down here. So what's that mean? I mean, it means that Ethereum's essentially stronger than Bitcoin right now. If we go look at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, we're breaking this downtrend at the moment that I've been watching, and this is a weekly chart. And if we zoom out, we've been hanging out in this golden pocket up here for a really long time, since May of 21. We've been chilling up here when we chart Ethereum against Bitcoin. When we break this downtrend here, then we start getting up into this area up here around the 786. If this chart can get through the 786 and through this downtrend and all this resistance it's been fighting for a long time, then we might start having the conversation about ETH, potentially flipping Bitcoin, or at least getting a start to that happening. But until then, I still think Bitcoin is king, and I think Bitcoin needs to show us something a little more dominant than the rest of the market. If we look at Bitcoin dominance, this is just abysmal, right? It's just kind of the same repeating pattern where whenever Bitcoin dominance goes down, then the market is falling and alts suffer. But right now, Bitcoin dominance is going down and the market's going up. So it's kind of a weird little divergence happening with it. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. I think I would like to see Bitcoin dominance going back up for a healthy market. And this doesn't look like it. So in my opinion, it's not that healthy of a market, right? It's a real weird situation. I don't know if maybe Bitcoin just gets replaced. We've seen technology get replaced before, and maybe Bitcoin just isn't the one that's going to last forever. Who knows? There's plenty of Bitcoin maxis out there, I'm sure, that would yell at me for saying that, but I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen. I don't hold any attachment to anything, so I'm not an anything maxi, just so you know. All right, so let's go to total market cap. So this is going to measure the entirety of crypto. And you can see when I started this fib, I go with this base here. Let me make this bigger so you can see. I go with the base that it kind of ignores the COVID drop here for this, because this was kind of a black swan event. And had COVID not happened, I don't think we would have seen this. I think we would have stayed on this level. So that's why I like using that spot sometimes. And you can see that the levels do appreciate it. Like the levels respect that level. You can see the 236 here, the 382 here, and now we're sitting on the 0.5, and we are above the weekly 8 EMA now. At least at the moment, we did not close over it. So that's something that needs to be understood as well. So last week's candle closed under the 8 EMA, but now we are moving up over it. So whether or not that sticks, we got to wait a whole week now to see, right? So we'll have to wait. CPI, I'm sure, is going to give us a good clue when we look back at this next Sunday, where this finishes. So we'll just have to take that 1 week at a time. All right, so I've covered DXY, I've covered USDT, I've covered Bitcoin, I've covered Ethereum. I didn't really cover Ethereum too much because it's really just a matter of getting back up over trend here. So we could see 1440 again still. And if we do, then that means we broke trend. So that's great. But we got to get through the 382 first at 1330. I think we might see 1330 this week. I think there's a very good probability of that. Whether we get up and test this trend again, I think there's probably a pretty good probability of that. Getting over it is the next question, right? Let's see where our pivots are. So we got a pivot right there at trend. And we're currently sitting at R1 on the daily. So you can see here, this is our current resistance. You can see prior resistance here and here and here. So this is a big spot that we're currently sitting at. Kind of find it hard to believe we're just going to blast right through it, but you never know. It's crypto. All right, so that covers all of those. I do think the Dow Jones is going to outperform for the entirety of 2023. And ETH, EMB. All right, so I want to go to gold. Everyone's real bullish on gold, and rightfully so. It's very bullish still. However, I don't think it's going to just continue straight up like a crypto asset. I think we're going to have a little bit of a pullback at some point here. If we just measure that, you can see we're about to tap the 0.618 here. So whether or not we get into the golden pocket this week is a big question. hasn't touched the 8 EMA at all since it crossed bullish on the weekly. On the daily, it's pretty much just flying. So gold's pretty bullish. Long term, you kind of can't go wrong with gold. However, if I'm going to trade it, I'm definitely going to wait for a pullback to try that. I did get a little bit of a lick out of it earlier last week when I saw it break the 0.5. So I was able to take it from about here to about here, and then I closed it out. So that was pretty cool. Besides that, I'm going to wait for a pullback now. Quant still holding resistance at 117. That needs to break ultimately. I got mixed feelings about Quant. So it's like a big head and shoulders here, right? Here's our shoulder, here's our head, here's our shoulder, but then it didn't break. It's kind of just bouncing around now and trying to move back up. And if we look at the monthly, it looks like an inverted head and shoulders on the monthly. So I don't know what to think, to be honest. So here is your first shoulder here, right? Here's your head down here, and here's your potential next shoulder. And what that would look like if that happens would be something like this coming up. And the neckline is somewhere right around that 786 if I take my line and travel here. See that? So it's kind of hard to see because it's in the monthly, but if I get rid of this and this, you can kind of see it. So I'm going to be waiting to see if we make this move back up over 131.5, which is ultimately the main resistance that we're looking at, which is this top. And I'll feel a lot better about Quant if it can break that level right there. So that's what I'm waiting for. It's only like $17 away. So it's not like a massive wait, which I'm willing to wait on because I don't like the head and shoulders here. So that's that. OP made the move that I was expecting, and I was able to get a little clip out of it, but not as much as I had liked because I don't really like trading weekends. So that's not a big deal. But now it's got to hold that 0.5. I think someone said they were shorting it, which I hope they got out because it made a double top here. I think they would have got squeezed. But OP is kind of one of those that can just keep going. So you never know. It did break its downtrend, and I wouldn't be shorting that. This looks like a big, pennant, and it broke bullish. And so now, the golden pocket's possible. It could even go up here and start making another all-time high at some point. So I would not be shorting OP. ADA might be able to get a nice trade back up to trend here in the 21 EMA on the weekly, which sits at 37 cents. Should that continue. And let's go into Tesla because everybody loves Tesla. So Tesla is the big story because it's falling massively. And it's currently finding support at 382, which is right around 106. I don't think this is just going to keep dropping like a rock. I think we are going to get some sort of bounce. So how do we play that bounce? Well, we wait for a confirmed daily close over the 8 EMA. That's the start. Okay, once we get a close over the 8 EMA on the daily, then we can start measuring and saying, okay, we might have a bottom. And then you're just going to want to take the last peak, which is right here, and draw it down to that bottom there. And that 0.5 is going to be your target. So once the 0.5 is your target, then it's probably going to retrace and it'll monkey around inside the EMAs for a while before it tries again. And if it tries again, then we could take it to the golden pocket around 150. So there's a lot of room to make money on Tesla on the rallies. And I think for like short-term day trades, this is going to be one of the most traded assets in the stock market. So this is something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. That's a pretty bullish candle that it left on Friday. And I think we could see at least a move back up to 120 as early as tomorrow. So we'll see what happens there. Apple has a very large trend line that it's been on since the beginning of time. And I do believe this is one of those assets that Jungle Book has shown us, and this is the kind of chart you want to see. So this starts all the way back in 2003 and it's just up forever, right? So 20 years going up. And you can see every time it gets to this orange line, that's when you want to buy it, right? And so right now we're breaking below that orange line. And we have been below it before. And when we were, you would have wished you bought it, whether we were right there, or right there. And now we're kind of well below it. And so I'm kind of wanting to dollar cost average into Apple starting here. Now, that does not mean it cannot continue to fall should the economy continue to show weakness. But basically, we're still in the same range that we've been in since 2020, right? So 3 years now we've been kind of here. And I do believe that Apple pays dividends as well. Yes, they do. So, not bad to be able to hold on to a company like Apple, at a pretty significant discount, to collect dividends, add to them once a month, once every 2 months. Apple's not going anywhere. We all know that. It's safer than, buying OP, in my opinion. All right, so with that, I think I am finished. Amazon looks pretty decent at the moment, bouncing off of the 786 multiple times. And if it fails that 786, then we're in for a world of hurt. But the daily was bullish engulfing on Friday. And so I think this is, when I start thinking about what I might expect next week, I start looking at all of the things that hold the most weight in the S&P and in the NASDAQ and in the Dow Jones. So when these start printing bullish engulfing candles, then you can expect the whole index to do well going into the next week. So that's kind of just another thing I use to make those analyses. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you was this really cool thing on Bitcoin and like Fibonacci circles. I just got to find it. Where did it go? There it is. Okay. So about 6 months ago, I saw this guy on Twitter, and he drew these symmetrical boxes basically on the first 3 years of Bitcoin, just this first uptrend here. And he made 3 equal boxes, basically just using 50% fibs to separate the vertical and horizontal layers. Now, if we take a fib fan or a fib spiral, which is just this little tool down here, and we start right in the middle and then work our way to each square, it kind of seems to mark these important days when things happen. So I can go here, for example, and you can see how it follows this curve, at least in these price points here. If I start moving this way, then you can see how when I'm on that quadrant, it marked that bottom right there, right? So if I move over to this square, you can see it marked the beginning of that bull market when things started breaking resistance. You see this resistance that comes across here? Now, this is a monthly chart, so it's kind of hard to see, but it's happening. So if I go here, you can see that marks that important date that causes this big jump up in the market. And now this was, 477 from 312. So that was a, 33% gain that month. Just to kind of give you a little context. If I go here, it marks the same spot. If I move down here, you can see each one of these marks, and even if I show you that point right there, it's kind of hitting that doji perfectly. Some of these aren't as noticeable as others. But if I go to this point here, you can see it marks that bear market bottom right there. Okay. And then if I go to this spot here, I think it marks this bull market top almost, right? And then if I go here one more time, it marked that bottom. So you can see where that wick comes down and hits that bottom right there. So now if I take my spiral and I can switch it from clockwise to counterclockwise, so I'll go counterclockwise now to get some more data. But if I only use, oops, I didn't want to move the center. But now if I only use this inner square here, it gives me more things. So I'm just going to use this square for my points. I'm sorry if this is boring, but I find it very fascinating, but I'm kind of a nerd. All right, so if I go to this square here, you can see it's marking an important part right now where we are, right? So that's interesting. If I go to this one, it marks that bull market top right there, here. And there was one more that marked that top there. There it is right there. Okay. So here, almost had it. It's kind of hard to get it right where you need it, but it marked the all-time high here as well. So this just goes to show you something cool that Fibonacci spirals can do, and kind of just shows you human behavior follows this pattern still. And it's just another cool method to do it. I'm going to link you to the tweet that I saw 6 months ago. I just kind of tried to replicate what he did because I think it's cool. And I thought you guys might like it too. So with that, I'm completely done nerding you guys to death. So if you want to give me some chart requests or ask me any questions, please feel free. Let's see, we got Sol took off these last 2 days like ADA. Let's look at Sol. I always wonder how much of the decline was due to FTX. I know he had a bunch. All right, so there you go. Just hit the 0.5 at 16. That's what I was looking for. I had a feeling it might go there. So it just short squeezed all the way up. You can see we're oversold now, or overbought now on the daily. So whether or not it can actually close that daily candle over the 0.5 is going to be the next question. I think we'll probably see some consolidating from here. It's had a huge run. That's 100% from the bottom. That's massive. So, I mean, if you want to be a buyer here, be my guest, but I'm not going to. 112%. I'll definitely wait for a retrace and then at least some sort of narrative that Sol could still potentially be around next bull cycle. Like I said, things get replaced. You never know which new layer one's going to come out, or layer 0, whatever that means. That's going to just totally take over, and people will lose interest in Sol and AVAX and, you know, these other tokens that were in the last bull run. Most of the time, they don't make it to the new and next cycle. Allstate, yes, I can. Please be Kadena. No, not Kadena. I don't know about Katina. I don't know. I know you can mine it, and I know it moves around a lot. It's very volatile. Long term, I don't know about it. All right. ALL, Allstate. I would imagine this is a good company to invest in. It looks very bullish, in my opinion. So this is what you want to see when things are bullish, is when it keeps beating down on the door of the resistance. So you can see this is the clear resistance here. And I would fully expect this to break and continue higher. How much higher? I would probably measure this downtrend here to get the 1.618 that I'm looking for. So I would just measure down, and it could potentially see 191 at some point in the future. How soon? Can't say. But that is essentially where it's headed next, because this company seems to just go straight up for long periods of time. So this was 2011 that it bottomed. Looks very similar to the S&P historically. So yeah, I mean, even if you drew a trend line up through here, it looks good. I would hold this if you're already invested, and even if you're not already invested, this is a buy. It's currently bullish on all formats. The EMAs are bullish on the weekly and on the monthly and on the daily. Could we see a little pullback from here? Absolutely. Probably hits 143 this week at that R3. Past that, I run out of pivots on the daily. On the weekly, it's the same pivot, but then there's an R2 up here at 150. So 150 looks pretty clear, in my opinion. So that's what I think about Allstate. Any other chart requests? Come on, guys, what you got? What you got? Anything? Is anybody excited about this year? Or is everybody so beaten down that they just don't care? I hope it's not the latter. Phantom. All right, let's chart Phantom. Phantom, another one that, you know, probably isn't going to make it to the next cycle. Is it going to be tradable and we can, you know, trade it here and there? Yes, but it's not something I would buy and hold on to. So, oof. Because see, it still looks like a massive head and shoulders. This looks exactly like Sol right before Sol made its massive move down. I mean, it's above the 8 EMA again on the weekly, so that's a good start. But I just don't trust altcoins right now, other than trading them. So I mean, you can see if I draw this trend line. Okay, here, let me show you an example of what happens here. So here's the trend line here, right? And you break it. And then it comes back down and retests it, and then just stays sideways forever. So now where's the trend line, right? Did we break it? Do I need to draw another one here? Now it's broken again. Maybe it repeats, comes back down and just stays sideways forever. This is where consolidations happen. They'll make you think the trend broke, and then it'll just bring it right back down again. And then you got another line to draw somewhere to break trend. That's why it's really important to make sure you're not really investing in things that are speculative or altcoins before they cross bullish on the weekly. Right now, this has not happened yet, but you can see what happened last time it did, right? Here's where it crossed bullish on the weekly, right? And then you can see the results of that. So it's way better to just wait. Just wait to see if that happens, because it might not happen. It might create a head and shoulders here, just like Sol did, and fall all the way back down to like under 5 cents. This would be the next level down, would be this range here. So can we trade it short term? Sure. But ultimately, if this project isn't going to work out in the long term, this is where Phantom's going. Plain and simple. It's just, that's what happens. So if everybody likes the newer blockchain more than Phantom, then Phantom's going to suffer and the newer blockchain is going to be where the money goes. SWK. Is that a stock? Okay, Stanley Black and Black and Decker. Okay, Black and Decker. It looks like a really good discount, to be honest. It is the second time it's hit here, so it's all the way back at its COVID lows. Let's see what fib this is. So that's the 0.5. So it's worth adding. I think it's worth adding here and averaging into this. I haven't looked into the financials of Black & Decker to know how well they're doing as a company, but that might be something you want to look into. And if you look into those financials and you see that the company still looks solid long term, this is a great place to add it. Understanding that if that 0.5 fails at $70, that we could see the golden pocket down here anywhere from 44 to 54. So just keep that in mind. If you have already bought into it, this looks like a double bottom at the 0.5, and you got a nice bullish move back over the 8 EMA to be more certain. Again, you're going to want to wait for those weekly EMAs to turn bullish and cross. But at the moment, that looks pretty good short term. Short term, I would say that is bullish. It's kind of what you want to see when these EMAs form this kind of point here, right? And so 77.35 is your pivot, right where both EMAs are crossing at the same time. That's going to be kind of your stop loss, maybe a little below, just to make sure you don't get wicked out. So that's not a bad short-term trade. It's like 4%, 4.5% back to the pivot. So if you get a little bit of a pullback, you could try to enter with your stop just below there. If you're trying to short-term trade it, if you're trying to long-term trade it, dollar cost average here, dollar cost average if we get down here again. But if ultimately we break that 0.5, you see a candle close below that mark, then you might want to cut it and wait for the golden pocket down here. COF, Capital One. All right, let's see. It's very sideways for a very long time. All right, well, I guess we'll just have to go. That's hard. I'm gonna have to just go with this trend here because it's mostly sideways on the high time frame. It's slightly up and sideways, so it's pretty decent. Hasn't touched the 0.5 yet, so I would maybe wait for that. You can see how that is an important level. If I just take my line here and draw it across there, you can see that support there, right at my 0.5. Looks like it's also the top right here. Yeah, so look at that. This is a big level right here at 82 to 83. So I would wait for that because that's almost kind of a given that we're going to get there. So I would wait for 82.23 right around this 0.5 and that prior resistance slash support, and make your buy right there with a stop just below. I think it's a really good possibility that is going to get seen at some point in the future. And I usually will not go back and look at this, Ronik. So if it does happen, point it out to me so I can see. All right. All right. Any other requests or questions? You guys can ask me anything. If not, I'm going to be ending the call. NRDS. Yeah. Yeah, let's do NRDS first since it's a stock, and then we'll go to Atom, okay? All right. It's so new. So that's hard. There's not a lot of data. So I got to go with like a daily time frame and chart what I got, which isn't much. For something like this, I would definitely have to use fundamentals. See, okay, so it kind of broke that little trend. It's retested the bottom of it. It looks kind of rough. You would definitely need to wait on this at least until it broke that again. At least until it showed that it could get back over this. Yeah, I would wait on that. There's not a lot of data. So if the fundamentals look good on this company, then sure, kind of, dabble a little bit here and there as time goes by and see how it does. But I wouldn't buy it again at all until it at least got back up over that trend. Broke $10. $10 is going to be a pretty big barrier. You can see not only with that diagonal trend that there's also a major horizontal resistance here. You see that? And that's currently where it's trying to break through right now. So I would definitely wait on this one. All right, let's go look at Atom. Atom is bullish on the daily. I haven't looked at it in a while, so that's that trend. These fibs you see here are going to be the weeklies. And on the daily, we're very overbought again. It's made a nice run. When you see this kind of curve, I notice this a lot. It likes to mark tops and bottoms when you see this, like it's kind of like a shark fin almost shape that it makes, where it's like straight down and then it makes this curve. It's typically a very bullish move, or if you're seeing it in the opposite where it's bearish, typically that means it's going bullish. However, we are very oversold. Whether or not crypto continues to move up from here is the next question. And Atom might be one of those that has a much better chance at surviving into the next bull cycle over others, simply because of how much it's used. You can still look on chain and see how much it's used. And it was very bullish even while Bitcoin was bearish. So it does have strength. Now, whether or not it makes it is the question. Let's see what the weekly looks like. So the weekly's getting there. And let's go from that top to that bottom and see where we are. So we could potentially make a move back to this 0.5 up here if we can get these weekly EMAs bullish again. And so that's kind of what I would wait on. There's a lot of these tokens that I'm waiting to see if they can cross bullish on the weekly. I'm kind of going to start ignoring the daily at this point because everything's so sideways that the daily EMAs can just stay like this and just go sideways and cross bullish, bearish, and drive you absolutely mad. So weekly EMAs is going to be where it's at least for me in the near term. And if I start seeing things crossing bullish on the weekly, I'm going to start hopping into them. And so I'm going to point that out in the Discord as well. And when I see them, I'm going to show you guys and tell you what I see. All right. So besides Bitcoin and ETH, obviously, like I believe in Bitcoin and ETH. I know that they're going to be around. So I don't necessarily need those EMAs on the weekly to be bullish to dollar cost average into them a little bit here and there. But as far as altcoins and these other token projects, I'm going to need weekly bullish EMAs in order to feel better about it. A0 is looking not too bad. I did buy some down here when I called support, I think a couple days ago. I saw consistent support right down here in this 84 area, so that's where I bought some. And I'm up a little bit already, so I'm pretty happy with that. And A0 is one of the ones that I think when we do get another bull market, that it's going to be one of the ones that gets the most hyped. Don't ask me why I think that, because I don't know. I just kind of have a knack for these things to be able to kind of just get the feel for what's going to be hot and what's going to be not. So that's just one of the ones I'm going to take a shot on. It's got a broken down trend also, so we'll see. All right, if there are no more requests, I'm going to end the stream. And just so y'all, do you think SHIB has a chance? No, absolutely not. SHIBs, nope. I don't think I've ever bought SHIB, ever, and I don't think I ever will. I still don't really like Dodge, or Doji. I don't even say it right. That's how much I don't like it. It's too inflationary. I don't want anything that is more inflationary than the dollar. I might as well just hold the dollar, right? I want low supply projects that have tokens locked up, and that means the supply is even less. And so when you can create validator nodes with A0, for example, as time goes by and more people create validator nodes, well, that means they're locking up all those A0 tokens, which means the supply comes down, which means demand goes up, and this is where you get your big moves. SHIB is not going to give me that. I don't want to hold on to something like SHIB for a year just to get that one day that comes, right? I don't want that. All right. So with that, I'm going to end this week's community call. Thank you all for coming, and I'll see you in the dojo.